I'm getting ready to make stewed tomatoes because I pulled a lot of tomatoes. It's like a veritable tomato wonderland in my kitchen because my garden is producing tomatoes and tomatoes and tomatoes, and I have never had a year like this, and I'm tickled. So when life gives you tomatoes, you make stewed tomatoes. But before we can go to making stewed tomatoes, when you stew tomatoes, you have to skin them. That's just like my own preference. I don't think that when you make stewed tomatoes, the skins are going to fall off. Nobody wants to bite into that. When I made the sauce last week, we ground that all up, so it was hardly noticeable. But today, we're going to skin some tomatoes. So I'm going to just, before we get too far into this, I have a blanching basket. I hang it up here off to the side. I don't use it very often, but when I need it, it's there. So let's see if I can get this out of here without having to. This is the perils of having a small kitchen, you know. But I have, this is a blanching basket. Okay. There, see. And you're gonna, I actually bought this. This was one of those as seen on TV dealies. And it just fits in there.
That was years and years ago, right?
It fit, no, I bought this last year.
Oh, okay.
This just fits in there.
This was the new one.
This was the new one. And I just have my 8-quart pot here because we're just gonna be blanching. But the first thing I have to do while the water is getting up to temp is I'm gonna process the tomatoes to get ready to put in there. So I'm going to have Rick turn around and I'm going to show you. Last week I showed you how I core tomatoes, and this is your own personal preference. Some people do not core them before they blanch them. Some people just put a little X in the bottom. I find it to be much quicker and a lot easier to take the peels off if you core them first and just take a little nugget off the bottom. Oh. When you core, we did this in my last video, you just insert your knife and then you're going to come out with a little cone, like a little china cap, okay? And a china cap is a kitchen tool. It is not a derogatory comment. And then and these yellow tomatoes, look, I peeled this without putting it in the water, and it peeled. The peel just came right off of it. So they're not going to need hardly any time at all in that water. So, and like here's a Roma, and it's ever so slightly underripe, but that's okay. We'll just core that out.
Add a little different flavor. It
will. It'll add a little. It's got a little more firmness to it than the ripe ones. And I need to process these because in a few days when I go back out in my garden, I'm gonna have to pick more.
We're gonna have this many again.
Probably so. And the reason that we have gardens is to provide for our family when we can't grow these things. You know, Molly's like, why don't you share with the neighbors? I'm like, after I have enough for us, then I'm going to share with the neighbors. And I don't think that is an unreasonable thing. You know, we have to help, we have to contribute, we have to share. And that's the truth. However, you can see, look, you can see how easily the skin is just peeling off of these yellow tomatoes. It's just amazing. So these aren't going to have to be in the water very long. But I don't want to stand here and do that unless I actually take the effort to put them in the hot water, because it's going to take a lot less time. And listen, we're making stewed tomatoes. We're not canning whole tomatoes. If I were doing this to enter a jar of canned tomatoes in the county fair, you can bet your bottom dollar I would be taking extra effort and time.
What if you put them through a food mill?
Well, you can put it through a food mill if you're making ketchup or if you're making sauce, but when you're making stewed tomatoes, you want them chunky. You know, when you get a can of stewed tomatoes from the store, really they're like whole tomatoes that have been stewed. And they've just broken up a little bit during the cooking process. And that's how I like my stewed tomatoes. Because then if I want to break them up later, I'll do that with a pair of scissors.
And she'll show you that later.
Take a pair of scissors that are clean and stick it down in the jar and snip, 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 and you've got chopped tomatoes. I think I've shown that. Have I shown that before? I don't know, maybe. It's been so long since I've done some things. I have these set out here because I'm going to make an heirloom tomato salad. And see, that didn't take long at all, did it? Now, I pulled frozen peppers out of the freezer. That's what these are over here. And that'll be in a different video when I actually make the stewed tomatoes. But I can hear my water is boiling right now, so.
And we have a whole bunch more peppers too going in.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to start by putting some tomatoes in this basket. And I have this bowl out just to make it easier because it gives it a little stability. Okay, that's probably all you're going to want. I'm sorry, Rick had gotten a phone call, so it is what it is. But we had boiled, we didn't boil, we let them sit in the hot water for 30 seconds, which isn't really long enough for the red ones, but these yellow ones started to blister. So this first batch was all, you know, mixed. So the next batch that I have in the pot right now is all red. And they've been in there for about a minute, and I'm getting ready to pull those. But I wanted you to see how easy the skin comes right off the tomato. And like I said, this is, everybody has their own way of doing this. This is how I do it. It may not be pretty, but it's effective. It may not be perfect, but it's effective. So look, these have been in there, and they've already split. You can see some of them have split along the sides. And I'm just going to bring them over here.
And Molly wanted us to show you this smiley face.
Can you see that? Skin. There's a smiley face on that tomato skin. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to dump this in here. And let's see if I can get the skin to come off of one of these pretty easy here. Let's see. Much better. It also helps if you have asbestos fingers, but these aren't really that hot. But the water's hot. But after years of cooking, I have developed enough, you know, residual scar tissue on my hands and arms that nothing really hurts that much anymore. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and I'm going to process the rest of these tomatoes and probably move on to another video. But first, let me show you just one more time. I'm going to use some of these yellow ones because they're splitting a little bit easier. I'm going to put a couple in here. I'll just put 3. And the water is simmering. Now, you're going to want to wait. You'll be able to see, now some of these, the skin came off a little bit as I was coring and, you know, taking the bottoms off. But you'll be able to see the skin curl. And that's an indication that the tomato is, see, look here. You can see this, the skin is splitting on this big tomato. Do you see that? I don't know if you can.
I think they can.
But you can see there how it's split. These tomatoes are ready to come out. And you need to put them in the cold water immediately. And move on. Now, I'm going to process this. That is how I peel tomatoes. I take out the core, I take off the bottom, I put them in simmering water. Now, the reason I'm doing them separately is because the yellow tomatoes are a little softer and their skin is a little thinner. The Romas have a bit of a thicker skin, but they have less water in them. So you're going to have to judge your tomatoes. Test it out. If you have a nice, big, juicy, soft tomato, you're probably going to have a thinner skin. It just depends on the strain of tomato you've grown. Keep an eye on it. Don't leave them in the hot water too long. It'll tell you when it's ready to come out. So I hope you try this. I hope it makes it easier to understand when I say I've taken the skins off my tomatoes. It's really not that hard. It's just a little bit messy. So I hope that helps. And until next time, I'll see ya.